Let's make some money in Michigan. NASCAR returns to the Great Lakes State, and we get you ready with our best bets and DFS tiers next on the Backroad.
It's a non-points race, but it is a short race. Checker flag. That's all this
What's up, everybody? Happy Thursday night to you all, and thanks for tuning into the Backroad. It's In Between Media's Fantasy NASCAR betting show. My name's Elliot Hicks. With me is Seth Woolcock. Seth, I know you had an exciting fantasy football expo out there in Canton, but I hope you're excited to get back here and talk some racing tonight.
Absolutely love the great state of Michigan. They got a lot of great things legal up there in the great state of Michigan, including sports betting, I believe. So, yeah, happy to be heading there. And I leave for like 2 days. I drop off face the earth in the NASCAR world, come back, and it's all melting down. It's burning down. People are jumping off rooftops. And I get a text from you Sunday night about like 8:30, 9 o'clock. Holy shit. I was nowhere near a TV.
More specifically, it was holy fucking shit. And
Yes.
then you said, "Oh, I'm not live," and then I don't hear back from him until Tuesday night. We're all in the midst of, is there going to be a penalty? How could this happen? What happens? And then Seth finally figures out what happens.
Yeah, I waited about 2 days. I stayed off the internet after that. I just saw like, should Joey Logano be upset? So I know Joey Logano got spun or something. I was fading him in a matchup, so I was stellar. I was happy about it. And yeah, I waited till Tuesday, watched the rest of the race, and yeah, good shit out there. Some not good shit as well. But I think either way, us going to Michigan will help liven people up a little bit. I was talking to some friends here on the internet, and they said Michigan is the Talladega of the North. I never heard that before, but apparently that's the case, Elliot.
Yeah, that's a new one. I bet it's a good time up there. You know, it could be next on the bucket list here for IBT. You know, northeastern. You know, Michigan's just a little hop, skip, and a jump west there. You know, a hell of a lot closer than say a Sonoma. You know, out in Rod's country.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we get going too, Elliot, I do want to shout out the IBT family. They were ripping early. Marcus was in here 341 asking who everyone's picking. Of course, we know who Marcus is picking every single damn week. It's Chris Bell. So he was on Bell early. Kush in the show chat half hour before we go live. He's saying Blaney and Elliot to win this week. What's up, Kush? Good to see you as well. So appreciate it, guys. Appreciate you hanging out with us tonight and being here early. Like 5 hours early. That's respectable. That's earlier than Elliot was getting ready for the show, I'll say.
Yeah, I mean, I was still in the midst of my research during my workday at that time. So shout out to the IBT fam. And I know we're excited to talk Richmond. We're excited to talk Michigan. And we're excited to throw those bets down and make you all some coin this week. But first, we got to shout out our friends over at Trophy Smack coming on the last couple of weeks here for the Backroad. Trophy Smack is your one-stop destination for your fantasy leagues this season. You can elevate your league to the next level with the most unique and the highest quality championship hardware in the industry. You can celebrate your league's champion with thousands of fully customizable trophies, rings, and belts using their so easy a child could do it design tool. Don't forget, no championship season is complete without its loser as well. They've got a growing collection of humiliating loser awards and punishments. And one more thing, go ahead and visit trophysmack.com today. You can get free 2-day shipping on all of your draft kits, and that's no code necessary. That's just for watching this show and listening to us read. So thanks to Trophy Smack for being on board once again.
Yeah, shout out Trophy Smack. They came in big time at Draft Night Out last week. We gave out a bunch of Trophy Smack swag. Actually have a bunch of Trophy Smack draft boards left here at the IBT headquarters. If someone's having a live fantasy football draft in the next couple weeks, just let me know. I'll send one out. I'll get one in the mail out to you. And I'm doing mine this weekend, Elliot. And Trophy Smack once again came through for that. So we appreciate them greatly here as we head into what's kind of a crazy time for everyone here. We're going to have NASCAR ripping still, end of the PGA season real quick, and football right around the corner, my friend.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Busy times at IBT, and shout out to all the IBT fam for supporting all the sports. The one you're here, though, for is NASCAR. So let's get back to it and take a look back at Richmond in the rear view. So we'll start with the Truck Series race. They were the first ones back after a hell of a long time without any racing in the top 3 series. I tell you, I've never paid more attention to ARCA than I did without any of the top 3 series out there. Some excitement there, but also some excitement at Richmond. Ty Majeski winning the race there. The playoffs are already started. They're already locked in. And of course, in the Cup Series, Austin Dillon, as you say it here, he pushes past the line of acceptable driving, not only in the eyes of a lot of fans, but also in the eyes of NASCAR. He gets the win, he gets the trophy, but that win is what we know, at least formerly knew as encumbered. He will not be able to use it for playoff eligibility. An important clarification, if Austin Dillon is to go out and win one of the next 3 races and doesn't, wreck 30 people on the way to it, it will be eligible for the playoffs. This win is not. He was also taken 25 driver and owner points. His spotter, Brandon Benesh, suspended for the rest of the regular season. And Joey Logano also fined $50,000 for doing his little burnout on pit road and coming a little too close to run innocent people. So, where can you even start? That was just absolutely insane.
Well, if you start from a betting perspective, it was awesome. Had Denny Hamlin 10-1 outright, used 100% DraftKings boost on Thursday on it, was feeling really great. And when he lined up third, I said, okay, this is a good time. This is a good spot for Denny. I think he can do what he's done before. I figured Austin Dillon would be aggressive on the restart, didn't get a great jump. And then it went to Joey Logano. 4 or 5 car lengths going into the last corner, just dive bombs it in there, takes him out. Denny comes back. You can say what you want. I don't know. I'm not in the car. I don't know that the SMT data is kind of showing that Austin Dillon did turn left into Denny. So definitely fair, but by NASCAR, I think, from what they did at this juncture here. But at the same time, just a crazy ending. And man, I can't believe Austin Dillon would have won this race straight up if Ricky Stenhouse Jr. wasn't playing grab ass back in 25th again.
Well, that pass wasn't even for position, and he just goes and dumps Ryan Preece.
Yeah, come on, Ricky. We try to defend Ricky on this program quite a bit, and he does shit like that. So that's a bummer. But I was expecting someone to show up after this break with some random speed. I thought it might be SHR. I thought maybe Trackhouse would come out with something. Turns out it was Austin Dillon. Do you think it's more about, hey, RCR is turning the corner here? Or do you more think it's what Austin Dillon said on the Dale Jr. download this week, that he just had a really good setup for Richmond? He had been in the sim. He had kind of found something there last week, a line that not many people had found. So do you think it's more just a one-off here in Richmond, or are you beginning to turn the tide on RCR here?
It could be both, or it could be, we'll have to see how they do at Michigan. We've only had the one race, but Austin Dillon has traditionally been pretty good at Richmond. He's had some good finishes there. And maybe Stenhouse was just playing some 4D chess. He and Richard Childress Racing have not gotten along, dating back to the little fight they had at Wilkesboro. So maybe he's, hey, I see Austin Dillon's going to win this race. Let me just go ahead and cause a caution here, knowing that the 3 car wasn't going to be good enough on the restart, knowing that it was going to take desperation to win. And I think that if it was just the Logano move, I think there's no penalty. Yeah. It reminded me a lot of Ty Gibbs on Brandon Jones in the Xfinity Series in the fall of 2022. It was an unnecessary bad bump and run, but there was no penalty there. It was the fact that you had the unnecessary bump and run followed by your spotter yelling, wreck him, which Richard Childress tried to pull a card of somebody who he idolizes a lot and flat out lies about just obvious truth that we all heard on the radio a half hour afterward. It says, wreck him, Austin Dillon.
Don't believe everything you hear on the internet, Elliot.
Oh, apparently not. But the SMT data clearly showed the left turn and the right hook to Denny Hamlin that was the hardest hit measured by G-Force in the history of the next gen that JGR had ever measured.
He got out of there spry too. He was looking good after that hit. Denny Hamlin's got some balls.
Yeah, Denny did mention it kind of hurt his shoulder though, so I know that. And he sounded a little winded. So thankfully he seems to be all right, but still a pretty hard hit. And I think it's just both of those together. Obviously, you have to do what you can to win because he's not being able to win races that often. Daytona, he might have a shot, but he was 32nd in the points, hadn't really come close to running up front at all, hadn't led a lap. You have to take he wasn't going to have the win taken away from him, and he ends up getting the win, but it's just a little bit too far, and I understand why NASCAR had to take away the playoff eligibility.
Hadn't had a top 5 since Bristol Dirt of last season, 50 plus races. So you can't, I think Landon Castle tweeted out, you can't hate the player, you got to hate the game. Yeah. And so I don't blame Austin Dillon for what he did, but at the same time, you have to justify what NASCAR did as well. Like they stepped up, they said, hey, this was a line, you crossed it here, and good on them. I just wish, maybe Denny was declared the winner and I'm walking out with a nice 10-1 hit. But either way, shout out NASCAR for doing the right thing.
Yeah, NASCAR stated that part of why they had to wait and part of why the penalty was what it was is that there's really nothing in the rule book to directly take away a win from somebody other than like the failed post-race inspection.
Yeah.
So, but they do have the disclaimer in there that I forget exactly how it's worded, but it's something along the lines of, any sort of win or championship eligibility must be within the bylaws of the code of conduct or whatever the fuck the legalese is for it. But I think at the end of the day, obviously people are going to be upset that it took till Wednesday, that a lot of their betting cards weren't able to hit in the way that they wanted to. But I do think NASCAR handled this well, and they're hoping they don't really have to do this ever again.
Yeah, a couple more things I want to shout out from that Richmond race. Loved the option tire. I thought that made this race very entertaining. I know you and I have talked. Hey, should we go down to Richmond here, cover that race here? Hey, if they keep having option tires there, or eventually just run the soft tires, I'm all for it because it was very entertaining. Suarez used that to his advantage multiple times. We saw that come into play. McNasty, same thing. And shout out Carson Hocevar, 8th place finish for him. That was very, very impressive. This guy is showing continual speed, continual growth in his racecraft this season. So great to see that. And I was high on Bubba Wallace last week. I didn't end up laying on anything down on him. Finished 4th. And he's just having a great turn of the tide for him as well when he desperately needs these playoff points. So shout out to him as well. Should have backed him last week. I did not, but I did shout him out a couple times when I was watching his lines. And so yeah, that's really all I have on Richmond. Do you have anything else there?
No, good call there though on Bubba Wallace. He's one of those drivers. Wallace, Chris Buescher, and Ross Chastain particularly. That it is just razor thin on the cut line.
Oh yeah,
even Ty Gibbs, is only 18 to the good or something. It's going to be a hell of a battle. That's made even better by the fact that Austin Dillon does not get to jump the entire board 20 spots. It makes things even tighter. And at the end of the day, it's going to put a driver with a better chance to win a championship in the playoffs. I mean, unless Austin Dillon goes out and wins Daytona or even Darlington, which he very well could do. I don't want to totally rule that out. But at the end of the day, I likened it to when Zane Smith was P2 at Nashville, and he's kind of in the points around the same spot as Dillon, one of the worst full-time drivers. I liken that to the 0-16 Detroit Lions from 2008 making the playoffs. Austin Dillon wouldn't quite be that, but maybe that 0-16 Browns team from like 2016 or whenever that was, it would have been like that team making the playoffs the way Austin Dillon ran. So, it's almost a blessing in disguise for the parity of the sport and for everything like that to not have a guaranteed round of 16 elimination, have to muck up the bubble race.
Nobody wants Austin Dillon in the Netflix documentary. He's already got his own TV show. He doesn't need another one. So yeah, I agree there. Shout out to Chuck in the chat. What's up, buddy? Good to see you, man. New face James Jones in the chat saying Austin Dillon for the win this week. You heard it here first.
I don't know about this week. I think Daytona, he's going to go balls to the wall. He's had good runs at Darlington, but that'd be a tough one in Michigan.
Hey, James, I don't know what the odds are. I think they're probably at least 100 plus to 1. So if you want to get invested, man, take a little sprinkle over there. We don't hate it. We don't hate it. Also, familiar face here, long lost friend, Bob Bodner. What's up, Bob? Good to see you, buddy. Saying I'm liking Blaney Hamlin this week. Hamlin definitely came up in my research. Not as much Blaney. So I'm excited to hear Elliot's thoughts on him a little bit and maybe the IBT family's thoughts on the number 12 car there as well. Elliot, anything else from Richmond, or do you want to jump into some recent news here that just dropped about an hour before we went live here?
Yeah, so the news of the week that came out, obviously most of the news cycle this week was on this Austin Dillon thing, so not a lot dropping there. Some announcements scheduled for the Michigan weekend. Haas Factory team is going to announce their Xfinity lineup. There's another random team announcement that I think is scheduled and something else that I've written down. But just announced a few hours ago, AJ Allmendinger is going to be full-time once again in the Kaulig number 16 car in the Cup Series in 2025. And really, this is just them remedying a mistake they made for this year in taking him out of that car, making him run full-time in the Xfinity Series. And I totally understand wanting to grab that outside sponsorship money, taking Chevrolet money and Richard Chodris's money and whatever money to go run Ty Dillon, or taking money to run Derek Kraus in that car, or guys who are really nowhere near the same level of Allmendinger. Kaulig is moving back to their trophy hunting mantra, putting arguably the best driver they have in that stable back in the Cup Series full-time next year.
Yeah, about time. Terrible move this season. I get why they had to do it. They're chasing those funds, as you kind of alluded to pre-show with Chevy. And so I get it from a financial standpoint. Kaulig kind of needs to get their shit together here. And this also tells me like they have nothing in the pipeline. Like they got Josh Williams there. They got SVG on loan from Trackhouse in the Xfinity series. So like they kind of need to get their development program up a little bit. Cause I mean, like their number one prospect is a guy who's been in Cup twice now, Daniel Hemrick. And isn't necessarily wildly impressive. We've seen Hemrick have a run here, there this season. I remember at Dover when we were there earlier this season, Elliott had a good run there. And AJ Allmendinger had a good run at Dover and has had multiple top 10 runs so far this season in the Cup Series in this number 16 car. So it's the right move. It'll be exciting to have Dinger back on a full-time basis next season. As you said, kind of just remedying a mistake they made that I think really cost them just a leap year here in the Cup Series.
Yeah, and it's the same thing we talked about when they put Allmendinger in full-time for that season a couple of years ago, or it was just last year. On the road courses, with so many road courses in Cup now, you're getting not only a playoff favorite to go out there and win a road course, but also a guy that can advance in rounds. I don't think the Glen is going to stick in the playoffs, but you're still going to have the Roval, and you're still going to have enough road courses that getting a car in the playoffs, which of course is what everybody aspires to do, becomes a little bit easier. You know, obviously rotating drivers, you're not going to get in. All due respect to Daniel Hemrick, you're probably not going to make the playoffs. I can see it already. SVG in a Trackhouse car, Allmendinger in a good Kaulig car. Absolute cinema battles at a place like Coda next year. It's going to be fun to watch.
I hope so, man. I feel like AJ's maybe lost a step a little bit at the road courses. Hasn't seemed to be super consistent in the Xfinity series. Seems like SVG has a pretty wide margin in that piece of equipment. And even in the Cup series, when he's come up, I know he's not running Cup every single weekend, but hasn't been necessarily overly impressive in the Cup car when he's coming up for these road courses this season. So, you know, I'm hoping it's just kind of an off year for him. I know he just had a kid, I think, late last year as well. So hopefully he can kind of get back in the scene of things a little bit. But I'm excited for it. What would you say if what would the odds have to be for you to bet money on over AJ Allmendinger half a win next season in the Cup Series?
That'd be a tough one. I mean, we
4
will
to
have
1,
to see,
3 to 1,
maybe like a 4 or even a 5 to 1. But I think that's exactly it with Allmendinger, that this year with SVG being in the Kaulig program, they're devoting more time to him. I feel like not only in Xfinity, but in Cup as well, where they've thrown Allmendinger to a spare parts car in the 13 rather than running that 16 car that's been their main primary or secondary team, however you want to look at it, in the past couple of years. And I'm sure Allmendinger has been frustrated this year too because of that. So I think you're going to see a super motivated guy in that number 16 next year that, yeah, if you give me plus 450, you know, on an over-under, I might be thinking about it, you know?
Okay. I can guarantee you, other than like some bullshit top 10 bets here and there, I don't see myself really betting a whole lot of AJ Allmendinger outrights next season in Cup, even like at some of these road courses, other than the Roval. I have him circled for the 2025 Roval. I think it will be back. That's kind of the rumor right now that it probably will be back for at least one more variation of it. So shout out AJ Allmendinger, though. He's always a fun person to at least have on Sundays, cussing out his crew and cussing out his crew chief. So I'm going to be excited for that.
Yeah, don't forget about the 2024 Roval. I'm sure that Kaulig will put him in at least the 13, if not the 16. So it could be fun to watch.
Yeah, absolutely, man. All right. What do you say? We start breaking down Michigan here.
Yeah, let's go ahead and see what's going to go down in the Irish Hills this weekend in the Horizon forecast.
Hey, Michael, it was only 20% chance of rain. I think we got all 20.
So we're headed to the Michigan International Speedway in Brooklyn, Michigan. 2-mile, low-wear, high-speed, intermediate track. You've got some comps here, but Michigan is one of those tracks that is almost one on its own. It's similar to a lot of those high-speed intermediate tracks, just a little bigger and just a little faster.
Yeah, my primary comp here is Kansas. It's really just a bigger Kansas. Kansas also referred to as the mini Michigan. Still a unique track. Similar horsepower to what they were running at Pocono a couple weeks ago. Similar horsepower to what they were running at India a couple weeks ago as well. But when I asked drivers at Pocono if there was really any comparison to Michigan, they kind of threw that out. So really, we can look at Kansas this season. We can look at Vegas. We can look at Texas, and we can look at Charlotte. You can factor in Homestead, but that's kind of another one to me. Homestead's kind of a unique track, and we also haven't ran it here in 2024. So I'm leaning on Vegas, Texas, Charlotte, and Kansas the most here to really break down Michigan, but also just using a lot of track data over the years up here in the Great Lakes State.
Yeah, Michigan in the next gen, the 2 races that we've had are definitely big. And also, just past races at Michigan, just because it's its own thing. But I do like the comps of the high-speed intermediates, like you said. Kansas being a mini Michigan, I know there's some comp there, but I'm a little hesitant just because Michigan runs a little bit differently.
Okay. All right. All right. Yeah, I waited a little heavy. So hopefully we're similar on guys this week, or we might not be. Looking at the schedule here, pretty condensed this weekend, 12:35 p.m. Eastern time on Saturday. We do have the Cup Series practice and qualifying, and then 3:30 Eastern. That's going to be the Xfinity race, the Cabo Wabo 250 on Sunday. Then the 6 p.m. Eastern time Cup race. That's going to be the FireKeepers Casino 400, lap 45, 120, and 200 will end that race. And if you're bored on Friday, ARCA race is going off as well. They've had some good racing here in last couple weeks as well. So keep that in mind. Looking at some trends here, Elliot, no doubt about it. Joey Logano, most polls here at Michigan. However, 23-11 have had the most polls in the last 2 years. They've swept it in 2023 and 2022. Any interest like off the cusp for 23-11 after hearing that? Does that perk your ears up a little bit? Because when I was doing some research, again, Bubba kind of popped for me. He finished 5th here last year, but I was like, I don't know. I don't know if I can get invested there. But 23-11, I think is at least going to unload fast again, Elliot.
Yeah, I didn't even look at the poll winner data, but 2 of my favorite guys this week are the 23 and the 45.
Okay. All right. Good to hear. Only 6 active drivers with wins at Michigan after Kevin Harvick leaves. Had a couple wins at Michigan himself. Logano 3, Larson 3, Hamlin 2. Buescher, Blaney, Rowdy all have 1. And then winners coming from the front row 29% of the time. That's a little bit higher than your standard. 59% of the time coming from the top 5. That's a little higher than standard, but top 10, 74.3. That's about right in the middle there. So really it tells me, hey, if you have speed in practice and qualifying, like legit fucking speed, I know that the qualifying nowadays is kind of a little wonky. I kind of hate the new format that they just released on its midseason, but I'm really paying attention on Saturday, and I'm keeping some of my outright money in the holster right now.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, Michigan is definitely one of those tracks where if you're not unloading very fast, it is really tough to catch up and make those adjustments. Smaller tracks, you got some more variation, but at a place like Michigan, if you don't have the speed from the first minute you're off the truck, it's probably gonna be a long weekend for you.
Yeah, and even if you qualify bad, like even if you have a good practice at least, like that's that's gonna be very important, especially on the long run. Like it wasn't until the long run last year we saw Chris Buescher kind of emerge out of there. So something to keep in mind there. Funny enough, speaking of Chris Buescher, Roush actually leads all active wins here with 14. I thought that was wild. Woods brothers second with 11. They had a shit ton back in the very early days of this track, so you can kind of like I'm not high on Harrison Burton or anything. Penske third with 10. And Hendrick has won just 8 times, and the last time came 10 years ago in 2014. So to me, Elliot, we know Michigan is kind of the backyard of Ford. Do they get a little bump here for you this week? Do you think they should be the favorite manufacturer in the odds?
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, that's one that we'll talk about a little bit later, but Ford definitely is big time undervalued. They have won each of the last 9 Michigan races. And the last Chevrolet to win was Kyle Larson's 3 in a row that he pulled back in 2016 and 17. But and like I said, we'll break it down a little bit later. But Toyota is the favorite manufacturer in the Cup Series, and that kind of confuses me. But we'll talk more about that later.
Yeah, I think maybe it's just because it's Denny and Bell, and they're running so hot right now. But yeah, I definitely thought Ford should be probably the favorite there as well. Let's round out here the segment with a little bit of iFantasyRace.com's Asterisk Mark Driver of the Week. This week, it's your guy here. Yeah, Alex Bowman, give it up for him. Was a top 10 contender here at Michigan last year, but finished with an Asterisk Mark 33rd in that race. Bowman finished 7th in stage 1, finished 5th in stage 2, led 19 laps, looked good, but then at the end of the start of the last stage, Bowman crashed while running in the mid-teens, kind of got shuffled back due to some pit road strategy, and then never was able to recover after that. So Alex Bowman, I talked to you earlier this week. I saw a matchup kind of fading him, and I said, is this worth getting invested in? And what did you say?
Yeah, I mean, with Bowman, he's had kind of bad luck there at Michigan. This race last year, I mean, he looked really good. He and Christopher Bell kind of tangled when they were running up in the front, I recall. if I recall, there was also a little bit like a rain delay in the middle of that race. There was something weird because I remember he and Reddick were kind of up front. But yeah, gets shuffled back and ends up crashing out. And that was, it's one I remember because it was those last couple of races in the regular season. Is the 48 going to win to get in the playoffs? The same thing everyone was thinking about with Chase Elliott. Didn't work out there. His numbers are all right here. His speed numbers are all right. But I think that matchup was against Suarez. And I think the Trackhouse could have some speed here. So, I mean, you'll have those numbers later, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But I definitely would understand going for or against Alex in that matchup.
Yeah, that was the thing. Like after reading this asterisk mark, honestly, like kind of pulled me off of fading Bowman. Like he had speed. And he had a lot of speed a couple weeks ago using the same horsepower package at Pocono when we were there too. So yeah, like I can't fade him. I kind of just decide I'm not gonna play him probably in a lot of DFS lineups. I'm not gonna bet on him, but I don't think I'm gonna fade him either. That number was like for Suarez versus him was like plus 130. I think I need a little bit more just because it's Hendrick equipment. It is Hendrick equipment at the end of the day.
Yeah, I don't really have a lot of Bowman in my notes this week because it could really go either way. The speed could be there, or it could be another typical Bowman running 13th all day, not really a factor. And that's not going to win you a lot of money, even in the most optimistic of matchups.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's go ahead, though, Elliot. Let's get to the bets here and a little parking garage props.
Let's go ahead and get it parked and make the folks some money. So my impressions of the books this week, I'm a little skewed because Bet365 was recently legalized in Pennsylvania, and that's kind of added more exciting odds, more variety in odds, especially when we get down to Xfinity later. This made things a hell of a lot more interesting, at least for us in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, I'm very happy Bet365 is here. I will say I'm holding my initial deposit in my back pocket right now. I'm waiting for I'll get a little bit closer here to college football starting, get a little closer to NFL. So I can kind of just unload some of those free bets, all for week one, all for the NASCAR race and for college football that week. So I'm holding those. I have nothing from Bet365, but I'm glad to hear you are already checking them out and getting invested over there, Elliot.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have all the numbers on my sheets, but with a lot of those bonus bets, I kind of just threw a lot of them out there for Michigan this week. If this thing looked moderately attractive or that thing, because I can only bet on a handful of things. So I'm going to go heavy in the racing and see how they all turn out. I'll update with any potential winnings here in the coming weeks.
Yeah.
Some of it's championship bets too, so I might not even know until November.
Yeah, this was a week where I really kind of went a little bit. I don't want to say like I didn't take a shotgun approach. I took kind of a close and narrow, a sniper approach, and I went heavy on the plays I liked. Not a ton in the outright market for me, but found a couple really interesting matchups. You guys know over the year I've been getting very, very into the head-to-head, so excited to share those and especially some Xfinity down the line as well. So overall, like I'll give it to the books. It wasn't bad. They're speedy with their delivery this week as well.
Yeah, I agree. Lots of good numbers out there early in the week. You want to lead off the outrights here?
Yeah, so I only have one outright right now that I'm currently down on for the Cup Series, and it is Chris Buescher. 20-1 at FanDuel is what I got him a couple of days ago. I found that just kind of a long line for a guy who won this race last season. Went about 1/8 of a unit on it as well. I will also be playing a top 5 plus 225. That's over at ESPN bet for a unit. The thing I like about Buescher, not only did he win this race last year, but there's a little bit of pressure on him again. Like he is very, very close to that cut line, even with it right now. Would have almost had more pressure on him had Austin Dillon's won stand. Last year in this race, number 3 in the total speed rankings, 3rd fastest late in a run, also 2nd best in average position, 8.1. So while I did mention we didn't maybe see the speed right off the truck for Buescher last year, we saw early enough in the race. He was consistent enough that it wasn't a fluke win. Looking at the high-speed intermediates this season, Elliott, 9th in the comp total speed rankings, was damn close to winning Kansas earlier this year. He was runner-up there, led 53 laps and won stage 2 of that race. Kansas is my closest comp track this week, so I'm leaning heavily on it here. I'm leaning heavily back on that number 17 car.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be a great weekend for Ford. It's going to be a really good weekend for RFK Racing, especially. I don't have any of them in my outrights, though. I mean, the couple of guys I have here, it's tough because I try to look away from the Hamlin and Larson dichotomy that you see at the front every week as favorites. I try to look for value a little deeper down. I try to look elsewhere. But I think even if it's not the outright, even if it's just the top 3 or top 5, you got to throw something on Denny Hamlin this week. I have him at plus 650 on FanDuel. He hasn't gotten a win at Michigan since 2011. But since 2019, he's been no worse than sixth in any of the Michigan races. So his top 3 is at plus 185 that I saw in Bet Rivers, and his top 5 is at even money. Even if you don't think he's going to win, I do think either the top 3 or top 5 is worth it. Unless he runs into trouble, I think that 11 car is going to be up front. But in terms of my playoff bubble names, I kind of like Bubba Wallace and Ross Chastain a little better. The 23's at plus 2,500 over on FanDuel, and Chastain is 30-1 on BetMGM. They both, they could point their way in. They're both within 3 points of each other. They're right on the bubble. A win would make their lives a hell of a lot easier, and I think they can both get it done at Michigan. The total speed ranking for Michigan in the next gen, 23 car is 3rd, and the 1 car is 5th. And at the high-speed intermediates, Chastain is 6th best this season. And in each of the last 2 years at Michigan, both of these guys have led 15-plus laps apiece in each of those races, so they know how to run up front here recently in the next gen. And damn if they're not motivated to get to victory lane, like I mentioned.
Yeah, I don't mind Ross actually at that price. He's 7th in the comp total speed rankings at these high speed intermediates this season. So you kind of made me give Ross a little bit of a double look there. Bubba's down in 16th there. A lot of that's kind of that outlier race he had in Vegas where he kind of got fucked in the pits on that one. So can't really blame him there. But yeah, I don't hate Ross at that number. And just to kind of tie things up with Denny Hamlin as well that you noted there, Elliot. I've been looking at him, and you know me, I probably bet honestly outright Denny Hamlin this year more than anyone. I did it last week, and I keep getting fucked. I keep getting come on, I thought I was gonna get to that sweet little payday last week. It didn't happen. But the thing about Denny Hamlin, like you noted, sixth place or better since 2019? You said.
Yeah, no worse than 6th place in any of those races.
If you're going to bet Denny Hamlin, go over to Bet Rivers, do it there with the top 5 insurance promo.
Yeah.
And then if he's top 5 still, you're getting your money back. Maybe lay something down at the top 5. I only saw top 5 at even money, so I didn't get invested with that. So I would maybe look to do something with him after practice and qualifying in the placement or the matchup market. But I might have to take the plus 650 with that protection there, and just because I think you're right. Like he was number 1 pretty much across everything you look at, whether it's the total speed rankings for the high speed intermediates, number 1. Looking at last year's total speed rankings, number 2. Fastest late in a run, number 1 last year. 4-second speed, number 1 last year. So it's all there. It's just the reason I haven't bet it yet is because I'm stubborn and I'm mad about last week. So and I was also hoping that maybe things would change today. Maybe that would end up cashing. I'd go right back in. So yeah, I think I might take a stab at Denny there, and also might add Ross to my car as well at 30-1. So Elliot, I appreciate you coming to the table with those good plays, man.
Yeah, of course. And the only other thing, I'm not betting this. I don't really have faith in it, but seeing RCR run so well last week and seeing Kyle Busch at a 40-1 outright. It's like I want to believe, but I've seen nothing.
Recency bias. Can't give into it.
That's why I'm not touching Kyle Busch really in anything. But it's just still crazy to see him at those numbers. To see him this far out of the playoffs. To see him maybe not winning a race in a season for the first time in 20 years, basically.
Yeah. From the chat here, Charles saying Harrison Burton catching strays. Hey man,
we're gonna love Harrison Burton in the Xfinity.
That's what I was about to say.
He might even get one of those Haas factory team rides announced this weekend. Who knows? But.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. Next year, Harrison Burton will come back into our good graces. Don't worry about it, man. Love me some of the Burton family. Love some Jeb. Love some Jeff Burton as well. Ward Burton even. Big Burton guy. So yeah. Bob saying still like the 6 and 17 just a bit better. Me as well. I like the 17. Brad's had some speed here, but just not as great as Chris. So, but it wouldn't surprise me if Brad, he's kind of been on the winning end this season. Chastain 33-1 at Bovada. Okay, that's interesting. That's interesting. I still got a lot of money in Bovada over there from my ARCA betting days out there in Dover. So probably should use that up here pretty soon, Elliot.
Throw it all on Ross in Michigan. Go for it.
I'm good on that. There'll be a lot of units there.
Okay. I didn't know how many units you said, but yeah.
Yeah.
Not that many.
Bob saying he got Chastain 45-1 at Dover. Yeah, I mean, Ross has kind of been out there at different times. You'll get him, especially after practice and qualifying, if he doesn't go pretty well. Keep in mind, too, I think it's going to be a really fun race to bet live. So while I am encouraged to potentially dump some more units on Denny, on Ross, as Elliot kind of brought up those guys, maybe I'm waiting. Maybe I'm waiting until after practice and qualifying. Maybe I'm waiting until it goes live as well. So just something to keep in mind. And I think if you are betting at FanDuel this week, I've still seen Buescher around like 17-1. I think if you bet a unit, you could get a 2-1 cash out at some point. Because I bet I would be shocked, Ellie, if Buescher's not leading this race at one point.
Yeah, especially if he's going to qualify up front. I imagine the RFK cars will have speed off the truck. You'll have that cash out opportunity at some point.
Yeah. Anything for you here in placement props? We touched outrights. What are you looking at placement props? I have nothing other than that Chris Buescher top 5. So I'd be intrigued to hear what you can offer the IBT family.
Yeah, I've got a top 5 and 2 top 10s. I'll lead off with the top 5. We've been just been talking about RFK. Brad Keselowski for a top 5 at plus 170 over at FanDuel. It's his home track, and he's never won here. So I'm tempted to take the outright. But I just think it's going to be one of those races where Brad runs well, but not quite well enough. Last year, obviously, Buescher won. Keselowski ran 4th. He's been top 5 in more than 30% of his races. So I think he will be motivated to run up front. And I just think the Fords are going to blow him out of the water. So I got to pick another Ford here for a top 10. And this is just as much a crew chief pick as it is a driver pick. Over on Bet365, Josh Berry is at plus 400 for a top 10.
Wow, really? 4-1.
4-1. I thought that was a good number. Even if it was a little shorter, I would like it. In his 3 Xfinity Series races, he ran with JRM at Michigan, 4th, 6th, and 2nd. And of course, Rodney Childers and Kevin Harvick had this place absolutely fucking nailed down. They won 5 times with 4 additional runner-up finishes in that career with Stewart Haas Racing, and 4 other top 10s on top of that in Michigan races. So if Rodney Childers still has that setup down and Josh Berry can drive it anything like Harvick did, I think you're going to see that 4-car running up front. And another top 10 I've got also at 4-1 over on BetMGM, Eric Jones, 9th in the total speed ranking for Michigan in the next gen. In each of the last 2 years, finished 8th and finished 10th. So he's cashed out that top 10. And the 43, another car that, they're going to want to show some speed. I don't know that they're going to end up making the playoffs. They're going to throw all their eggs in that Darlington basket, I'm sure. But seeing some speed from the 43 would not only cash that top 10 number, but also put some more faith in that 43 in the next coming races, because they can shake things up too. They're a little further down in the points, and these are some good tracks for that Jones boy.
Yeah, man, back-to-back top 10s for that Jones boy here at Michigan in the next-gen era. So one of those was with Petty before it was Legacy. They were both in Chevy equipment, so a little bit different. But, yeah, I think if you're going to be betting on Eric Jones anytime throughout the rest of the season, now is probably the time. Do you have a better number for him than 4-1, or is that what you're finding at 365 as well?
That's what I saw over on MGM. I don't have the 365 number in front of me, but I can take a peek here.
Okay. Yeah, and like on Rodney Childers and Josh Berry as well, Bob in the chat saying, I know the 4 looks horrible in his previous 2 races here, but I believe in the crew chief and Harvick one here. 5 of his last 8 races. Too heavy for me not to take a chance. What's Josh Berry's outright, I imagine? If you remember too, I believe Berry put it on the pole last year in the Xfinity Series here.
I think so, yeah. I'm pulling up that MGM, or not the MGM, the Bet365 right now. Had to refresh
100 to 1
100
to Berry.
Holy cow.
Yeah, at FanDuel too. So if you're getting it at FanDuel, there might be potential to cash. So that might be a nibble. That might be just like a 10th of a unit nibble, and maybe you get a little 2-1, 3-1 cash out. We played that strategy right at Pocono. I think we had him for 100 or 90-1, something like that. So I don't hate that, Bob. I don't hate that at all, man.
Yeah, also 4-1 for that top 10 over on 365.
Okay. Yeah, that's not terrible. Yeah, he's like 3 plus 340 everywhere else. So yeah, I can rock with that. Anything else for you before I get to some matchups?
No, go ahead. Let's pull out the matchups.
Okay. First, Chuck's throwing out a group here. Not a big fan of groups here. Ty Gibbs over the 22, 17, 24 plus 290. No way. I'm not betting against Buescher. I'm not betting against Byron. Not doing it.
Yeah, I mean, even Byron, he's not spectacular at Michigan, but any group that's got the 17 in it, I'm probably taking the 17.
Agreed. All right. So this is my play of the week. I put it out in my Betting Pros video earlier this week. Chase Elliott minus 105 at DraftKings. I went 4 units down on this. So this is one of my favorite matchups in a long time against Joey Logano. I think this is a misprice, and I think we're seeing it. Joey Logano should not be the favorite in this matchup. And it's listed as at FanDuel, and Chase Elliott's like minus 118 to the favorite. So I think to get Elliott here is a misprice. Elliott has the best average finish among all active drivers, 10.2 here at Michigan. Also a 77% top 10 rate as well. Meanwhile, Logano does have 3 wins here, but the latest did come back in 2019. And that was a long time ago, man. And I think he's going to be a little bit hot coming into this one after kind of getting one stolen from him last week by Dillon. Looking at the high-speed intermediates this season, Elliott is 8th in the iFantasyRace.com comp track total speed rankings here heading to Michigan. Logano all the way down at 18th. So really, to me, Elliott also 3-1 against Logano at these style tracks this season. A win coming at Texas, P3 at Kansas, referred to as Mini Michigan, as we kind of laid out earlier as well. So I think it's all wheels up here for Chase Elliott. I don't get the love for Logano here other than he's a Ford in their backyard.
Yeah, I think that just being a Penske Ford is going to give Logano some love, but I do think Chase is probably a better driver. And that I did see you put out that clip for Betting Pros. That's a damn good number. You know, it's nice when you can get those steals like that for sure.
Yeah, especially when you see other books and they see it your way too, and DraftKings is just a little bit off. So definitely like Chase there. I would probably take that even all the way down to -115. I probably wouldn't lay 4 units on at that point, but I do like the number 9. Also, one of my favorite bets this week, and we talked about recency bias earlier, Elliot. I'm going SHR -105 at Caesars for a unit and a half over Richard Childress Racing. This, to me, to have RCR favored when it's a 4 versus 2 is fucking wild. Like, that's wild to me. I get that RCR showed some speed last week, but that was really the first time all season at a non-super speedway they had shown speed. And Austin Dillon kind of said, like, hey, that's more because he was running a different line, more because they had a specific setup. I don't think they all of a sudden have fucking speed in those cars. SHR 2-0 against RCR in the past 2 Michigan races. Harvick won this in 2022 in SHR equipment. Almirola and Harvick last year beat AD and Busch as well. So I think SHR here also 3-1 against them at the comp tracks this season. The only one they lost to RCR was at Kansas, our favorite comp. However, Gragson was in 9th. Rowdy was in 8th. So a 3-1 record here at the comps, a 2-0 record here at Michigan in the last 2. What are we seeing? Like, I don't get it, man. Other than recency bias.
Yeah, I would agree with you there. And I like some team matchups this week too from over on Caesars. One of them is I'm going to take Front Row Motorsports at +115 over Legacy Motor Club, which is all the way down at -145. I think the Ford factor here is really going to benefit Front Row. And with Legacy, this is almost like an Eric Jones versus McNasty and Gilliland. JHN is likely to be a non-factor.
Yeah.
And I think that with Jones, I mean, even on tracks that he's been good on in the past, those cars are coin flips to either run well or run 32nd and 35th. So I think the Front Row Fords, especially with, you know, Gilliland being a surprise and McDowell, especially on higher speed tracks, kind of having some decent numbers. With that much of a swing at +115, I like Front Row. And I also like Hendrick as the favorite over Gibbs. Well, they're not the favorite. Gibbs is the favorite at -175, but Hendrick at +145. You know, there's been no Toyota wins here since 2015, and I know that Chevrolet and Hendrick haven't been really strong here recently too. The only Chevy wins since in that time frame were Larson's 3 in a row, like I mentioned, but Hendrick's won here before too. We know that Batman car back in 2012 went to victory lane, and especially with Larson in the Hendrick camp, I know he hasn't forgotten how to drive Michigan. I know it's different cars. I know that was really one of his top 2 or 3 tracks back in the Ganassi days. But I'll say it later too, and I've said it before, I'll say it again. I don't really get the Toyota love this week. So with that big of a price, I think Hendrick over Gibbs is definitely worth a stab.
It's interesting. I definitely think that should be closer because when you really think about it, like Denny's a little bit better than Larson here as of late, but Larson still won Las Vegas, won Kansas, so has been great at the comp tracks this season. So pretty similar to me for their 1As, their 1Bs. I would say Christopher Bell is that right now for JGR. Chase Elliott, we talked about him. I'd give the nod to Chase a little bit here. And then it's like Byron is just more consistent than Truex to me right now. And like Alex Bowman is, you know, right there kind of with Ty Gibbs. But let's also not forget JGR has some type of fucking issue that like that's just causing him to blow motors. So like it's hard for me to back JGR here this week. And yes, so I don't mind you playing the number +145. I did something similar back at Sonoma. I remember rode this exact bet, almost the exact line, I think +145. So I'm not going to knock you for it.
Yeah, I mean, just with those kind of numbers, and like you said, I hadn't even really considered that engine issue. And, you know, Lord knows with a guy like Truex, too. I've been wanting to bet Truex, and I've been trying to will that over 2.5 bet that I placed before Daytona into existence, but I just don't think that's going to get there either.
You and Tino every week between you guys on this program. It's Truex outright, Truex outright. And I've been telling you since he retired,
Right.
stay away.
I even thought about it this week, but I'm like, I can't keep beating the Truex drum. I even thought about it for the between bets column that we'll see.
No, we're gonna run out of Truex pictures to pick from. So
right, and that's the thing too. I found other drivers to write about. You can check that out at some point tomorrow over on the website.
yeah, absolutely. All right, what do you feel about a little Xfinity here?
Yeah, I will bring up the specials though.
Yeah.
For the Cup Series, just the manufacturer specials. We've been talking about it again. The Toyota Boner this week. I don't know what these books are on. I mean, they're plus 130 in both Bet365 and I think Caesars. Chevrolet's best number that I saw was plus 230 and Ford plus 220. Definitely inclined to hit the Ford over the Chevy because they've won each of the last 9 races here, and Toyota hasn't won since even before that. So I just don't get the Toyota love. I mean, I understand Denny. I understand people like Truex. But if you just look at the stats, why is Toyota the massive favorite, especially in Cup? Xfinity, it makes more sense, like we'll get to. But the Toyota Boner this week, I'm just staying away from it at those numbers.
Yeah, plus 220 isn't bad. For me, it's like I don't know really. Like, give me the Fords you think can win this. I think either RFK guy or Blaney. Like, I don't know if Logano has the juice.
I think any of the 3 Penske cars and either of the RFK cars, and maybe even McDowell in the right situation.
I don't think Austin Cindric or Logano can win this race. I haven't seen the speed there at the high speed intermediates this season. So to me, I'd rather just hit an RFK and hit a Blaney outright than betting the Ford. But I get it. I get why you would do it. You have a lot of safety. You have a lot of outs with it. So I can't knock it. But I'd rather just hang something on RFK and Blaney if so inclined.
Yeah, and Buescher is the top 40 even is 4-1. That's another one that I think is definitely worth mentioning with the RFK extra glaze that we've put on them, even than I was expecting today.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's talk Xfinity Series here, man. Looking at the top of the board, it was a lot of Cole Custer, a lot of Justin Allgaier, as it is pretty much most weeks these days here out in the lower tier series here, and then also JHN returned to that 20 car, getting a little bit of love there, around plus 550 on the books. Best you're kind of going to find on Allgaier or Custer is about 5-1. So, anything you liked in the Xfinity Series that you'd like to share?
Yeah, I mean, I love JHN this week, plus 550 over on Caesars. Won it last year. That team and that car have been the best on this type of track this year. I think he's your obvious one. It's funny because I had this number even before the news dropped on him today, but AJ Allmendinger out at 12-1 on Bet Rivers. His 2 Xfinity races here, 1st and 7th. I know that first was a few years ago at this point, and taking the outright might be a little risky, but they're definitely worth looking at the Allmendinger numbers. And I don't know, he doesn't have that much experience at Michigan, but for how the car performance has been and everything, I feel like Chandler Smith's odds are really, really long this week. I mean, his outright's out at 20-1.
Wow.
His top 10 odds, he's had 1 top 10 in his last 5 races this season. So kind of a bit of a cold streak for the 81. But like I said, for how that car has been and how that driver has been, feels like some really, really long odds across the board on Chandler Smith.
What are the top 5 numbers on him?
I realized I don't have that written down, I don't think. But
okay. Yeah, so funny enough, JHN, I'm with you there. I can't pick an outright for this race. I'm going to be honest. I just can't. I think it's going to be Allgaier, Custer, or JHN. I wish there was some bet you could just take the 3 favorites and group it in. But I do like JHN for a top 5, minus 125. Went about 1.25 units on that. Did win this race last year, as Elliot said. Also won a comp track earlier this year in Las Vegas as well. Yep. So he's looked good on this style of track. I'm with you there. I'm actually going to fade AJ Allmendinger, though. Sam Mayer over on DraftKings, I hit it earlier this week when they first came out, and I thought I was going to get a steal. Plus 105 for 1.5 units against Dinger. You can actually go to Caesars, though, and get plus 115. That's kind of what I get for fucking myself and getting too eager on it. I thought I was going to move. Sam Mayer on comps this season did not finish at Las Vegas. 1st at Texas, 4th then at Charlotte. Dinger did win here in 2021, but wasn't really impressive in Cup last year here, and finishes at the comp this year. If you take out Las Vegas where Mayer wrecked, he was 0-2 against Mayer. So I think really, like, aside from a road course, a Kaulig car should never be favored over a JRM here, especially at Michigan where JRM started last year, 1st, 2nd, and 4th off the grid. So I like JRM. I kind of got a little JRM thing going on this week, but I'll rep Mayor here, and this kid's flying, baby.
Yeah, there you go. The Chandler Smith odds top 5 is at plus 200. So that still feels a little long there. I definitely don't blame you. Yeah, plus 275 on Bovada even, which is a pretty good number. I definitely don't blame you for fading Kaulig. Like I said, I was those were the only numbers that really satisfied me. At Cup, AJ's never been good at Michigan, even dating all the way back to the Red Bull and JTG days.
Yeah.
I've got a couple matchups and a couple of groups, though. I can start with the matchups. I like John Hunter Nemechek over Justin Allgaier. JHN is minus 106 over Justin's minus 125 on Bet Rivers, just because the 7 car is always so goddamn unlucky. Not only is the JHN probably going to run up front, but the 7 car can be running up front with 10 to go and blow a tire just like he always does. And Seth, this one's a matchup you had talked about a few weeks ago, and it's back again. Carson Kvapil minus 105 over Sammy Smith at minus 125 on Caesars. Yeah. Well, why not do it? I'm taking Kvapil over Smith, which he's been 6 for 6 over the 8 car this year.
I know.
Favorite. There's no way I'm looking away from Kvapil on this one.
Some trends are meant to end, and it's right here because I'm taking Sammy Smith top 3 or top 5 plus 380 over at DraftKings. I'm going half a unit on this. Sammy Smith, Elliot, he's been top 8 at all 3 comp tracks this season, including a 3rd at Charlotte here over the Memorial Day weekend. So Sammy Smith's been good, man. His finishes here last year, he got wrecked out, so you can't really take anything from his stats last year at this track. But top 5 plus 380 for Sammy Smith. I was even looking at the 30-1 number. I almost tossed a little sprinkle on it. Like, he's kind of due for one, I think, here. So yeah, I thought about Carson Kvapil. I would take a top 5 on Kvapil before taking this matchup. Just get yourself paid a little bit.
That's wild. I mean, you've been consistently a Sammy Smith fade this season, basically across the board. I figured you would be totally on board with this.
Fucking heel turn.
Color me shocked. Shocked.
Yeah, fucking heel turn.
Bob. No, but I do understand Kvapil has been the expert more on shorter tracks. You know, his best run was the P2 at Dover. This is a bigger track. Sammy Smith's a little better here. But, I mean, 6 for 6, and that counts Indianapolis, which is a bigger track that Kvapil had never seen before. So.
Also, shout out DraftKings this week for their Xfinity odds. I mean, you could bet fucking Kyle Weatherman and Anthony Alfredo. You could bet fucking Shane Van Gisbergen and some folks. Like, you could Ryan Ellis. You could bet fucking Ryan Ellis. It's like the matchups this week.
Baby. Yeah.
The matchups this week for the Xfinity Series over on DK were absolutely awesome. I wish I knew more about Ryan Ellis and I had more time to sit through and hit all these shit boxes stats out. But there are some really cool matchups over there on DraftKings this week. So did want to applaud them a little bit. We usually kind of give them some shit here, but they are a partner of ours as well. So if you want to get invested with DraftKings, we have a promo in the description. Bet $5, get 200 free bets for new customers.
No doubt about it. I didn't even see the DraftKings odds because I was too busy being excited over Bet365 having Xfinity groups, which I thought was super cool. And they've got not just the favorite groups, but I've got 2 mid-pack groups. Guys you never get to bet on for anything.
What do you got? What do you got here? I have seen these groups occasionally on Caesar's Speakeasy, but they're not there every week. But I have, and it's like 2. So please indulge us here, Elliot.
Yeah, I'll have to do some digging in the Speakeasy for Xfinity. But Group C over on Bet365, being able to throw some money on Ryan Sieg on some tracks like this, you know, damn near won at Texas, really almost shocked the world there. And he's the longest odds out of this group, plus 375. That's over Taylor Gray at a 2-1, which that one's a little risky. It's over Carson Kvapil at plus 225, and it's over Parker Kligerman at plus 275. But just that Texas run and the way that Sieg has run on tracks like this, over those 3 guys, there's a lot of variation there. I think Ryan Sieg is definitely a fun one to go with there.
Plus 375, plus
375. So he's at the back.
I like that number. I like that number. That's a solid number. I hate groups, but.
And then if those aren't enough for you, there's a true, I'm not even going to call it a shitter group, but it's a mid-pack group. Parker Retzloff is my favorite this week in this group. He's at plus 250 in that Jordan Anderson car. That's over Kyle Sieg, who's also at plus 250. And Matt DiBenedetto and Jeremy Clements in this group are plus 260. So I really think it's no contest that Retzloff will beat out those guys.
He's got the best equipment, that's for sure. Yeah. I don't hate that one, honestly, either. Brian here in the chat saying, good evening, gentlemen. Just checking and saying, go Tyler Reddick on Sunday or Monday. So I had the pleasure of chopping up with in person last week with Brian multiple times. He was at the Fantasy Football Expo, came to draft night out, was sitting there getting ready for some cup practice. And it it was always nice to kind of leave the stress of the fantasy football expo every couple minutes and go bullshit about some NASCAR or someone like Brian. But he is trapped. He is betting Tyler Reddick every single week now until it hits because he's invested so much in him now. So Godspeed, Brian. Godspeed, my friend.
Yeah, I mean, this is the week to take your winnings, and Sunday or Monday, I like him. But if it is Monday, all in on Monday Truex Jr. That'll give me the reason. If it's delayed to Monday, I'm gonna start cashing that Monday Truex Jr. bet.
Go fuck your Monday Truex. I'm not doing it. I'm out. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Everything from me for Xfinity. Sam Mayer over Allmendinger plus 105. JHN top 5. Sammy Smith top 5. That's all I got. But yeah, let us know in the chat what you guys were thinking for Xfinity. Would love to hear anything you got going on. Bob saying he likes the 88 and the 1. Yeah, I don't hate Mayer this week. 88, I don't know. This is the track. I don't want to doubt him
outright, but yeah, I mean, it'll be fun to, I won't be on next week, and actually neither will you. It'll be a fun little Rod and Tino show next week heading into Daytona. That'll be fun for you guys to watch, hopefully. But I'll make sure to send you a text on Saturday and laugh at you for trying to go towards Sammy Smith and not fade him on anything.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. Brian said, don't worry. I'm sitting on Truex 13-1 just in case. Mm-hmm. Also, Austin Hill week in Xfinity.
I don't hate it.
I do. I don't like Austin Hill. He's an asshole.
Yeah, but just because you're an asshole doesn't mean you can't win races. If assholes couldn't win races, then Kyle Busch would have been out of the sport.
I don't trust. The cars are going too fast here on an intermediate. Austin Hill is going to dump someone or him fucking self. That's going to be a heartbreaker for you, Brian.
Yeah, but if you're going to go real fast, who's best on the highest speed tracks you have?
I mean, it is him. It is him. But Pocono. How many times have we seen as of late, like Austin Hill just kind of getting in his own fucking way? So.
Yeah. No, if we're going to take an RCR Xfinity car this week, I'd rather go Love than Hill. But
yeah, not a ton of data on Love right now at Michigan. That was my only thing. But I think he did win the ARCA race here last year. But again, that's ARCA.
Yeah, but he won the ARCA races at half the tracks last year.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, let's go ahead and get these tire tiers put up before we put everybody to sleep.
Let's do it.
Relatively simple week here. Entry list wise, it's your main 36 chartered cars. The 16 is AJ Allmendinger, and the 15 is Cody Ware. That's the other driver mistake that needs to be rectified. That hopefully Rick Ware will put somebody better in that car full time and not just run his kid because there's no money there. And there's rumors that even the other Ware driver can end up hopping somewhere else. So that would be we don't really comment on that because they're just rumors. But point is, it's fun to see talented drivers get in Cup Series cars, and we don't have that in all 36 cars this week.
No, less nepotism, please. That's all I'll say. Less nepotism. It was on full display last weekend, as we saw. But who are you thinking here for Tier A, Elliot?
I mean, I still think you have to put Hamlin and Larson somewhere in the A's. I don't know where you want to mix in the 2311 guys, if you want to even put them both in the A's, but I think those are the 4 that I want to start with, which funny enough, I'm glazing Ford. All of us are kind of glazing Ford. Maybe the RFKs can go in Tier A also, but of course I throw out 3 Toyotas and a Chevrolet as my top 4.
Yeah, I think you're a little too high on 2311. I mean, they've had speed right off the truck, but that doesn't always get you DraftKings points. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
sometimes.
That's true.
Give me Denny Hamlin for sure.
I think so, yeah.
I mean, 10-5, a little bit of a discount over Larson. 87 big ones last week, so he was fast. He's going to be consistent here as well. I'm not really worried about him losing differential points.
Mm-hmm.
Larson, you got to put up there just because he does have the win this season at Las Vegas, dominated that race, also looked really fast at Texas, fucked himself there with his wheel, and then came back and looked really great at Kansas as well. So got to have both those guys up there. I'd put Chris Buescher next. 8,600 for Chris Buescher. Are you fucking kidding me? That's a steal for Chris Buescher for me. So I'm totally on board for Chris Buescher. Depending where he qualifies, I would prefer Bubba over Tyler Reddick just from a pricing perspective. They're similar drivers to me and similar equipment here. 8,300 for Bubba versus 96 for Reddick. I can't pay that much for Reddick. So, yeah.
And I think Keselowski too at 9 is he's going to run well enough to justify that price, I think.
Yeah. I'm fine with that. Chase Elliott would probably crack open the bees for me. Just we kind of
Yeah.
alluded to him earlier, been very fast at Michigan throughout his career. He's kind of due
Mhm.
for one here. Won Texas earlier this season as well. So, yeah, give me a little Chase Elliott here. We know whether it was in the Cup Series or even the Xfinity Series earlier this year when he won Charlotte, he likes high speed intermediate tracks.
Yeah, I think maybe now is a good time for Bell and Blaney to maybe sneak in there. And maybe a Byron. I just don't know that the Michigan stats are good enough, even though the high speed intermediates, he's third best in the total speed rank.
Yeah, I prefer Blaney, I think, honestly. Blaney has not really wasn't what I thought he was going to be at Richmond last year or last week.
Mhm.
I don't know why, just kind of doesn't have the speed there. Luckily, I got some bullshit to come my way and cash a matchup over Logano at the end, but just been really consistent for Ryan Blaney. Last 5 races here in DraftKings points, 35, 49, 73, 41, 68. I expect that to continue on Sunday. So don't love Blaney as much as I have lately, but that horsepower package has been very good for him both at Pocono and Indy, where almost went back to back there. So yeah, Blaney's one of my favorite here, I think, in Tier B.
Yeah, especially with the Ford factor. I mean, short of RFK, Blaney's definitely the favorite Ford. And I mean, taking a look at the board here, maybe you throw Chastain up there in the Bs as well. Like I said, I think the 20 and 24 definitely are respectable enough to be mid-tier B drivers, even at some higher prices this week.
Yeah, I think honestly we could maybe make a motion for both Trackhouse guys. I really
Yeah.
like Chastain 8100 here. We alluded to earlier in the program. He's 7th in the total speed rankings for these comp tracks at the high speed intermediates. Looking at Daniel Suarez. Well, Daniel Suarez, not only is he having a pretty good run here as of late, but also Daniel Suarez 5th in the total speed rankings here at Michigan last year. I tried to find some way to bet on him. There was an an under 17.5 at Caesars, but it was super fucking juice, like minus 145 that I wasn't comfortable with it. But
Mhm.
to me, Suarez is a guy who I think he will be a top 15 car with upside for more here. So give me a little mi amigo here.
Yeah, I definitely don't hate that, especially at a good price. And I do think that even though Truex, not a good fantasy points week last week and not a lot of great ones lately, I do think he's worth a B minus here. It's good enough numbers here to not quite drop him down to the C's.
Yeah, I agree with you. Actually, number 1 in the total speed rankings from last year as well. So, yeah, definitely belongs here. And this definitely the lowest we've had Truex pretty much all season. But just I don't know, man. You can't catch a break, and he's just kind of burning you. Like if you've been playing Truex in lineups the last couple weeks, like minus 29 last week, 3 at the Brickyard, 37 at Pocono, minus 1 in Chicago. Like just hasn't been a great run for him. So I think he's properly placed here. Brian bringing up something about Denny that I think is important if we are going to anchor our lineup with that number 11 car. Denny offers a better placement differential here than most tracks. 9th or worse starting spot in 3 straight and just 3 starts better than 9th over the last 10. That might actually change my mind and how I feel about maybe betting Denny after practice and qualifying. Maybe that's the spot here, Elliot, after hearing this a little bit too.
Yeah, like I said, I hadn't looked into qualifying very much this week, and that's especially with the stats on how often you see guys. You have to start in the top 10 to win here. What 3/4 of the time, but
Mm-hmm.
the fact that he's able to move up with those differentials and not just start second and run fourth and even lose you some differential there definitely makes that 11 more attractive than he already was. At the top of our board.
Yeah, agreed there. I think we're probably good to jump down to B's or C's unless you have
Yeah.
anyone else you want here.
No, and I think the C's we really start to crack things open here. I can think of 4, 5, 6 drivers to kind of throw in here already. Some sort of combination of the 22, the 48, the 54,
Yep.
maybe the 4, maybe even the 43.
Yeah, I think you're going equipment alone on the 22. You got to throw him here. I think we faded him long enough. Been a kind of a rough go DraftKings wise for him just this entire season. Still only averaging about 29 points per race. So
Mhm.
not getting the finishes he always deserves. Josh Berry, though, 7,200 over on DraftKings. I think Josh Berry should be up there as well. I'm excited about him this week. As we said, like I don't think either of us are for Alex Bowman this week, but neither of us are against him as well.
Mhm.
Just kind of had a really good stretch there going, but it's kind of lost momentum a little bit, Elliot. Ended up finishing 31st at the Brickyard. Kind of some bad
Yeah.
luck there, and then finished
Yeah,
28th last week as well.
yeah, last week was just not a good race, and at the Brickyard got involved in a crash after kind of getting screwed on pit strategy. Not that he was running spectacular there, but yeah, Bowman and Ty Gibbs and even Logano, we've got one for each manufacturer. Good equipment, not expecting them to run like shit, not expecting them to knock our socks off. If they're the guys who are 12th, 13th, and 14th this week, it'll surprise nobody.
Yeah, agreed with you there. You did bring up Michael McDowell. I think he belongs in this tier as well. McDowell coming in
Yeah.
at 17th in the total speed rankings at the high speed intermediates this season. 6,600 for Michael McDowell. Just been super solid, especially lately over the last month for DraftKings points 41, 22, 15, and 37. He's been solid. I think I'll be playing some Michael McDowell 6,600 over at DraftKings.
Yeah, damn good price for McDowell there. That might close out the C's for me. I don't know if you want to make an argument for anyone else here for a C.
Uh, Probably not. And honestly, like I get the Eric Jones play based off pedigree,
Yeah.
and like
I
he's been
think,
solid.
yeah.
Yeah,
If you're
yeah,
not super confident, I can bump him to the back of it. But I do just think his Michigan numbers are good enough. And I've got, it's one of those, gut blind faith feelings that even if they don't end up winning and make it into the playoffs, the 43 car is going to be in the conversation with the way that the schedule sets
yeah.
up for the next 3 races. There's going to be a time when you look at the board and you're like, fuck, 43 might manage to get their way in here. They're not going to go out silently, I don't think.
Yeah, and if we could do a little more housekeeping, I think 48 I would put almost behind McDowell even just because like again
Yeah.
kind of mid. Same with like the 22. I don't know where you want to put him. Ty Gibbs, like I don't trust him at Michigan specifically. He's gotten a little bit squirrely in the Xfinity series here. Wasn't super impressive last year here either. However, he is third in the total speed rankings at these high speed intermediate tracks this season. So Ty Gibbs, yeah, I think that's a perfect place for him to kind of crack open the C tier. I kind of like it a little bit better now after some of those maintenance requirements.
Yeah, I think it was definitely worth shuffling those eggs around a little bit, and I'd like it a little bit better now. But I do think it's time to crack open the D's, and it almost feels like self-explanatory filling those in. I think probably both the RCR cars have to fit in here. I kind of would like to put Hocevar in here as well, Gregson and Briscoe too. Gregson and where's the other guy? Hocevar, both in the top 21 the last 2 seasons, total speed ranking, high speed intermediate. So they're respectable enough, I feel like.
Yeah, Hocevar, I think would almost be my favorite for this tier. Had a rocket in a fucking shitbox Xfinity car last season here as well. Get Austin Dillon's ass out of there. Elliot.
He's going at least in the Fs. I mean, the guy won is the defending winner,
Okay.
Gotta go
But
somewhere.
you want to know his total speed ranking?
Yeah,
Average. It's 28th at the
bad.
high speed intermediates. Like, get that shit out of here, dude. Like, come on. You're better than that. Stop. You're just like the books.
It's the same sort of gut feeling as in this guy's going to be pissed. He's going to be motivated. Is RCR actually finding some speed for these last couple of races? I feel like you can't ignore that. The fact, I mean, he won the race.
Think it's speed. I think it was. I'm taking him at his word. Unless they fucking supercharge these cars over 2 weeks, he just likes Richmond. He has a groove there. They don't have speed. I'm not buying it. Andy Petry's still the GOAT. I don't care what anyone says either. Fuck you all.
I don't know that Andy Petry's been relevant in 10 years, outside of yelling at a cop outside of Pocono last year. But I can't rule it out. We've only seen one race where Austin Dillon was the best car, and it was going to be the feel-good story of the garage. RCR's finally found some speed before Jim House goes and Ricky Spinhouse goes and fucks it all up for him and makes him have to play pinball and get a cucumber win. So
we might need a bet on Austin Dillon this week then if you're that. Like I don't know if it's first beer at our next race together that you're buying first round of the night or something.
I'm not even buying him to do well. Is going to put him in the D- or an F. I just think he's worth putting on the board as somebody to consider that maybe even if he just runs better than he starts, that's at least some sort of DFS positivity.
Would you take the over on him to be a top 20 car or no?
Yeah, I'd say 15th to 20th is probably where I'm looking at the 3 this week.
All right, I bet you the first round, our next race weekend next year, that Austin Dillon does not finish in the.
All right, so you're taking under 20. I'm taking over 20.
Yeah, I guess it would. Well, yeah, I'm saying 21st or 21st, or he finished
21st or worse, and I'm taking 20th or better. All right, gotcha. I'm ready. I'm gonna have this clipped, and it's gonna be tweeted out Sunday after the race, one way or the other. We'll get that content out there right away.
And usually I am a Busch Light drinker when we go out after races, trying to keep it light. I think I'm gonna have a nice little Captain Coke on you, Elliot. Yeah. That's all I'll say. I'm gonna have a nice little rum and Coke.
That works for me, because that's always a good drink of choice too. You got to get off the Busch at some point once in a while,
Yeah, it was good for me this week, and I was feeling good waking up after little sleep. I will say I am going to go with the number 2 car, put him up here 20th in the total speed
Yeah.
rankings this season
And
at this style of track.
a Penske Ford in Michigan too. You can't ignore it.
Yeah, he was pretty good at Kansas this year too. He looked pretty nice at Kansas. So, yeah, I would almost. I mean, Austin Cindric might be one of my favorites in the D's here this week. Like,
I think I'm putting him there. I think Gregson's worth the respect. He's in the top 20
yeah,
in total speed ranking. No worse than 16th in any of the 3 comps this year in that total speed ranking. And it was those sort of tracks, Vegas and Texas, where we were looking at Gregson as a top 10, like week in, week out surprise. So I think he'll get some of that mojo back at a place like Michigan. It's been a bit of a summer slump for them over at SHR.
yeah, it really has been. Really has been. Anything else for you for D's? I'm okay to kind of drop down in F's, maybe put a couple people above that number 3 car down here.
Yeah, I think so. Maybe probably Todd Gilliland and Justin Haley probably ahead of that 3. Maybe even Stenhouse get some respect up here.
Give me a little Todd G. Can't fault him what he's done the last. I mean, let's go through Todd G's finishes the last 5 races, Elliot. As far as DraftKings points, 42, 58, 6, 56, 41. His qualifying's been ass. His finishes here at Michigan also ass, but maybe it turns like, I mean, I think he's gotten wrecked last 2 times he's been here, so we have no data for him.
Right.
But Todd Dillon,
those fantasy points are impressive. I mean, that 6 that he got at Pocono was his only sub 22 point performance going all the way back to Talladega. And most of these are 30s and high 40s, if not even that 50 that he had at the Brickyard.
Bob saying, Captain Coke, I'm coming. Yeah, I know. That's what
There
Bob's running there out too.
Next year, a little Dover trip, we can run it back.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. A Dinger, I would throw Dinger in here again. Like, wasn't super fast here last year. Gonna be in the 20th prob, but 5,600. Like, I mean, you can do a lot worse than Dinger for 5,600. Like, JHN is probably the only other person lower on the board I would play at 55.
Yeah, and that's only because of that price. Because I looked into Allmendinger's Cup numbers, and I don't even know if he has a top 15. I know he doesn't have a top 10, and that's in, I think it was 20 plus Cup starts here. Has never run even like top 15 at Michigan. But we're not planning to run top 15. We're planning to run better than a $5,600 price, and I think we will.
Yep, agreed with you there. Yeah, I think. Yeah, JHN, throw JHN on there too. Did have a 23rd place finish when he was running for front row back in the day here at one point. So
I do kind of think Stenhouse, mid-20s in the speed ranking. A couple of greens here. Charlotte last year, 9th best.
Yeah.
15th at Texas this year. I think that's a good way to round out the board. 6,200 is a little steep, but when you get this far down, if you have the salary room that's created a little bit, you could do worse than the 47.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. I think that's pretty much it. Zane Smith, 27th in the total speed rankings. If you really want to get down and dirty, that's like the type of down and dirty when you go out, you have you think you're going to have a couple of drinks. Hey, maybe I'll get some dinner. Dinner never comes. And you wake up the next day on a couch that you never saw before. So that's the type of down and dirty I'm trying to get with old Zane Smith this week at 5,400, my friend.
But hey, sometimes that down and dirty gets you a runner-up finish in the craziest fucking NASCAR race you'll ever see in Nashville. So
there you go. Yes. Sometimes you wake up, and might be at the house of the love of your life that you didn't know 12 hours ago. So you never know.
Yeah,
you never know what happened out there. That's a little Captain and Coke night there, if I'd say so.
Yeah, I'm excited for you to buy me that Captain and Coke.
Let's go.
When Austin Dillon gets there. But yeah, I mean, these are the 5 cars that are going to be off the board most of the time. Daniel Hemrick, I mean, we can pull up his points here real quick. He's all the way, second from bottom in the board, and he hasn't had more than 20 points in the last 3 races. Only 250. He's had 250 plus, and one of those was at Nashville, the other at Chicago, and the rest has been mid-20s. There was a bit of a time in the spring where Hemrick looked attractive, and it's just not there right now.
Yeah, not there. Only had 1 negative performance all season though, because he starts so far down. You usually are getting some type of differential, so not good enough to be on the board this week. But like, if you came to me and said, "Hey, I'm running out Daniel Hemrick for fucking 5,100," more power to you.
Yeah, I don't know if he's good enough to put on the board with the way the board looks, but we've got him there, and like I've alluded to before, it happens every year where you get a couple of guys who are not going to be in Cup next year, are not going to be competitive at all, and these are 4 guys that really, short of maybe in Atlanta or Talladega, they're just not going to be on the board. Corey LaJoie in the 7, the 15 with Cody wearing it is irrelevant. Harrison Burton in the 21 and Ryan Preece in the 41. Like I said, wherever they end up next year, we've been talking a lot of Xfinity and trucks, and I think that if these guys can land in those series,
Agreed.
it'll be interesting to watch. But
Yeah.
it's just not there right now. Dog days of summer coming to an end, starting to get into that fall playoff stretch. Everyone's worried about who's in the playoffs, and everyone's worried about can the guys who didn't make the playoffs do well in the final 10. Who gets eliminated from the playoffs? Can they get there? Can Kyle Busch get a win? It's just nobody cares about the surprises back there. And I think that LaJoy at Daytona will be something to watch. We'll see where Rod and Tino put him next week. But short of that, I mean, there's the end of your board for the rest of the year, really.
Yep. Agreed with you there. And yeah, man, excited for Michigan, excited what's to come here on the In Between Media YouTube channel as well. We're continuing to crank out content, man. Football season is coming, but NASCAR will not sleep. So we'll still be here 8:30 p.m. Eastern time, really till the end of the season, unless we might decide to bump that up. We'll see what's going on. I know we kind of compete with Thursday night football, but fuck it. We have a great community here. We're just about to hit 1.2K subscribers, and that's crazy in itself, Elliot. I can remember when it wasn't that long ago, wasn't that many years ago, we were at 100. So super appreciative all support. If you guys enjoy this type of content, please give this video a thumbs up. Leave us a comment as well with who you think is going to win this week, whether that's in the Cup or the Xfinity Series. And also check out our website, inbetweenmedia.com. Subscribe to the channel if you're new as well. And I'm excited, Elliot. NASCAR, sometimes I think it loses a little momentum here in the late summer, early fall, because football is back. Not for us, though. It's still full steam ahead here.
No, full steam ahead because there's money to be made. There's so much intrigue in these 3 races leading up to the playoffs. And then the way the playoffs look this year, going to be super intriguing, regardless of the 16 drivers that end up qualifying. And don't forget, too, if you subscribe, you subscribe and comment and everything like that, you become eligible for giveaways that we do on this channel. We got another one of those coming up soon. Might have to do a little redraw for some stuff. I've got another little pile of things to start on our next giveaway. And hey, a little bit of Circle B Black Friday sales. We can replenish the little giveaway tote. Those are not stopping. It's our way to give back. Throw a little something on your shelf, just like we've got on our shelves here, to show our support for you guys being such a good NASCAR community. And if we move for the playoffs, move for the playoffs. But no doubt about it, the IBT fam will still be with us, which is definitely super awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. It probably doesn't matter if we stream on Mondays, on Tuesdays, whether we're on the shitter while we're doing it. IBT family
well, maybe not that far, but
yeah, the IBT family will ride with us regardless. So if you guys are on the channel, whether you're watching this non-live on the pre-recorded version or live, drop in the comments just your name so we know who you are. I had a big list of all our NASCAR community members, and then had to do a giveaway with the football people. Totally lost that. So let us know. We're starting from scratch here. As we said, we're going to redraw for a giveaway we did a couple weeks ago. No one claimed their prize. And then we're going to do some more giveaways here as the fall approaches as well. Ellie, I know you were down there in Charlotte a couple weeks ago, stocking up the goodie bags there.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Got to find some more room for some stuff in this place. But hey, thanks for tuning in this week. And you're all set, Seth. I'm going to cut you off.
No, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Beautiful. All right, we got all our shout outs in, we got our ad reads in, we got our points in, and hopefully we got our money made for the week. Best of luck with your bets in Michigan. Tune in next week for the craziness that is Daytona before we round out the regular season. And we'll see you next time. Thanks for rolling on down the back road with us.